Okay, everybody, it looks like it is 2 o'clock. I know a lot of people are still filtering in, but we want to go ahead and get started pretty soon. One thing I do want to test, if someone could just drop in the chat box to let me know if you can hear me or not. Can someone drop that in there just to make sure? Can you hear me? I'm concerned. All right, everyone, it is 2 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. I just wanted to make sure, can you all hear me? Can you drop a comment in the comment box to let me know that you can hear? Anybody? Okay. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Awesome. Thank you, Philip, Glenn, and Carol. You guys are the best. I was starting to get a little worried. Anyway, I wanted to thank you all very much for joining me today. I know that we are moving into the year-end fundraising crush, and one of our number one assets that we have as fundraisers are our actual donation forms. I have a lot of information to share with you today, but I wanted to go ahead and before we get started, just let you know a little bit about who I am. I work with QGive. We are an online fundraising company, and we focus really hard on making sure that people know how to raise the most money. If you are not a QGive fundraiser, everything that you'll learn here today is totally applicable to you. If you are a QGive fundraiser and you have any questions about how to apply this information today to your own account, let me know. I can get you in touch with the right person and we can help you tweak your page to make it exactly what you're looking for. Some quick housekeeping things. We are recording this webinar. You will get a recording from me after today's session. This email will probably come to you tomorrow based on how long YouTube takes for me to upload it. You may also get it on Monday morning if YouTube is being particularly difficult. If you have any questions, let us know as they arise. My friend and coworker Melena is standing by to make sure that we get your questions. She's also going to be tweeting the highlights of this presentation over at QGive. If you're a Twitter fan, follow us or tweet along with us. It can be a lot of fun. Before I tell you about how to tweak your online fundraising pages, I want to let you know who I am and why I'm talking to you about this. My name is Abby. I am the Nonprofit Education Manager at QGive, and I've been here for a little over 6 years. And my whole job is to understand how nonprofits raise money, how nonprofits can raise money better, and then sharing that information with the people I talk to every day. And I do this both at work at QGive and outside of QGive. I also work with a local nonprofit to help them with their online fundraising and marketing. So everything that I'm going to be talking with you about today is stuff that I also talk with my other board members. So this is something that I put a lot of research into. One thing that you're going to hear me quote a lot of is why we should be focusing on building these great donation forms. And you're going to hear me talk about a lot of statistics. And unless I tell you otherwise, all of those statistics are coming from our friends over at Next After. They are a fantastic organization that studies a lot of the data that goes into fundraising. And a piece of data that I saw at Next After that kind of made me a little bit alarmed is that 83% of people who land on your main donation page aren't going to end up making a donation. And that's kind of startling to me. I know you as fundraisers spend a lot of time and effort and strategy around getting people to land on your donation page. So we really want to make the most out of that traffic and we want them to give. So how can we improve that statistic that 83% of people who land there never go on to make a gift? And everything we do and everything we cover today is really going to boil down to mastering 3 strategies that will improve our conversions on our donation forms. We want to build trust with our donors. We want to reduce any anxiety that they have around giving both to you and giving online on an online donation form. And then we want to focus on removing any friction that a donor may encounter when they're actually trying to give a gift. So when you hear me mention friction, it is kind of a funny word. I'm mostly talking about obstacles that donors will encounter if they're trying to make a gift, but I'm also talking about little tiny pieces that maybe won't dissuade someone from making a gift on their own, but it does make the process harder. So we're going to focus on removing those frictions. So here's what we're going to cover today. I'm going to cover with you how to build a super awesome donation form, starting from top to, and then going down to the bottom. And we're going to focus on four different topics. So we're going to focus on making donors feel good about giving to you throughout the donation process, not just at the beginning. We're going to look at some things that maybe make donors nervous and how we can reassure them if they are leery about donating either to you as a nonprofit or to any nonprofit online. We're going to look at practical things you can do to improve that conversion rate, that 83% non-conversion rate. And we're going to look at how you can tailor your nonprofit's online donation form to make donating much easier. So the first thing that we're going to look at is making your nonprofit donation page mobile. And you are probably so tired of hearing this, but it's really important. And I still encounter a lot of nonprofit donation pages that are not mobile friendly. So this is why we want to make it mobile friendly. At this point, at any point during the day, more than half of internet traffic, including traffic to your donation page, comes from mobile devices. Your audience and your donors are interacting with you on their mobile phones. They're learning about you on their mobile phones, and they want to give to you on those mobile phones. So taking a mobile user from something like Facebook, which is where they're probably learning a lot about you, or Twitter, or various newsletters, and then dropping them on a non-mobile donation form can cause a lot of friction. If you have ever tried to navigate a non-mobile friendly website on your phone and you have to kind of pinch and zoom around the page to look at everything, that causes a lot of friction. It's not easy to give. So we want to make your mobile page, or we want to make your donation page mobile friendly. And on top of that, we also want to check your donation forms on several different mobile devices to make sure it works across all the different options that are out there. So check your form on an iPhone and on an Android and maybe on a tablet. But the biggest thing is we know that people are coming to your page on lots of different devices, and so we want to make sure that everyone has a great experience. So one thing that is kind of hard to wrap our minds around is why we need to make it mobile with such urgency. So if you are curious, if you need to take things back to your board, if you need to encourage people to make your page mobile friendly, you can bring them these two facts. So according to that Next After study that I mentioned earlier, from 2017 to 2018, so that 1 year, mobile donations increased by more than 200%. And because Google is very concerned now with user experience, they really want to push mobile websites and donation pages to the top of their search rankings. So purely by making your site and your form mobile friendly, you can increase your donations by 126% just on average. So those are those two stats that you can take back to your development team or your board or whoever needs to be convinced. Mobile donations are increasing, and you can increase your overall donations a lot too by making your site mobile friendly. Now, if you do not already have a mobile page, it can seem a little overwhelming when you're trying to figure out where to start. So here's where to start. So first, talk to your site host or your webmaster. Whoever is managing your page can probably at least point you in the right direction and give you some preliminary steps for making your page mobile friendly. A second person to talk to is your graphic designer or the agency that made your page for you. I can't speak to you super thoroughly on all the different design decisions that go into making a mobile friendly page, but there are certainly things to consider, and those people, your graphic designers or your design agencies, can help you figure out how to optimize your page. And then double check specifically your donation form and your donation form's settings. Some some companies, not QGIve, you need to enable a specific setting to make your donation form mobile friendly. If you're using QGIve, and I see a lot of you are, your mobile forms are already ready to go. If you don't have QGIve, just check with your service provider and see if they need you to do anything special to enable the mobile friendliness. So the next kind of tip I want to share with you is to use your form to reiterate your story. So we all know that our donors have made an emotional connection with us and when they decide to give. And we really want to use your form to keep that emotional connection strong throughout the donation process. And there are a couple of things that I want you to focus on. One simple thing that you can do to improve your conversion is to add a high quality photo to the top of your page. So this helps your donor connect with the people that they're going to be able to make a difference for by giving a gift. So include that high quality photo. I want you to, if you can, add a short impact statement and use you language instead of we language. And here are a couple interesting statistics. In that Next After study that I mentioned, adding an impact statement at the top of a donation form increased donations by 150%. They more than doubled. And then using you language instead of using we language increased those donations even more. So I have this example here from a client of ours called Mercy Ships, who does a wonderful job on their donation forms. I want to show you here, they have a really great image. So one thing that you'll notice is they have a before and after picture. And in that picture, they really put the emphasis on the after. They show the little girl who benefited from their services smiling and making eye contact with the camera. And that style of picture, one person smiling, making eye contact with the camera, is very effective. You can see here they also use you language. So they don't talk about themselves at all. They're talking about how you, the donor, can make a difference. That has a really huge impact. It shows donors exactly what they can accomplish by giving. Here is a little tip. You might be tempted to include a video at the top of your donation form instead of a picture, and I would really encourage you not to do that. In this Next After study, they found that using a video instead of a photo decreased donations by 560%. And that's pretty wild. We know that videos are a great marketing tool. We know that donations tend to increase after a donor watches a donation video, but we think that adding a video here has such a dramatic negative effect on donations because people are tempted to navigate away from the page to learn more about the organization or to watch another video. So there's a time and a place to use videos, and on your donation form is not the place. So we know, because we saw that 83% stat earlier, that the majority of the donors who land on your form are not committed to making a gift. So show them and things that they need to see to commit. We have here, I have this little arrow indicating this story, and it's small. So if you can't read it, it says save lives every month for as little as 62 cents a day. It's an effortless way to make a greater impact. So they have these beautiful images. They have this youth-centered impact statement. And then right where we see the ask to make a monthly donation, they have this beautiful impact statement. So these are some really valuable elements to include on your page. And here's where to start. We want to choose a great image to include at the top of your form. I skipped over this. This one, there's another single person making eye contact and smiling, and we know that we're visual creatures, so we want to include a fantastic image at the top of your donation form. We also want to brainstorm a really powerful impact statement. So once you've chosen a photo that you have at your disposal, or if you have to go take a photo, that's also manageable, come up with an impact statement that plays off of the photo to really connect the donor to the people that you've depicted in the image, so they'll be inspired to help. And then talk about how the donor will make a difference, not about how you will make the difference. That's really important. The donor here needs to see how their gift connects them immediately to the people or animals depicted in your photo. You can really build on the reiteration of that story that you've accomplished in the last tip by being very intentional with the donation amounts and suggestions that you include on your page. So we have established with the picture and the impact statement that a donor can make a difference just by giving. And now we're going to use the donation amount part of our page to show them exactly how they can make a difference. So offer a variety of different donation options. In this example, we have a nonprofit that has included suggested donation options from $25 all the way up to $5,500. And you'll notice that there is still the option to include another amount. And this is why we encourage people to do that. If I land on this donation page and I'm intending to give $20, I may see that there's a $25 option, and I am very likely to just click on the $25 option and give $5 more than I intended to. That happens very frequently. We do want to keep the other there, though, because if I can only afford to give you $20, you don't want to lose out on my $20 gift because you only give people the option to give $25 or more. So make sure we leave that other box there. You can describe what each dollar amount can achieve, and this has a huge impact on donors from an emotional perspective. We are human beings, and we like to buy things, and we like to have a tangible difference, and we like to know what our money is supporting. So including these suggested donation amounts along with a description of what that gift can achieve, we feel like we can make a tangible, recognizable difference. When you are doing or when you're building out this part of your form, experiment a little bit with the amounts that you include, the descriptions you include, and the style you include. This organization chose to start their array of suggested donation amounts by placing the largest donation amount first and then tapering down to the smaller donation amounts. We've seen other organizations start with the smallest donation amount first and then build up. The descriptions that really resonate with your donors will change. No two organizations are the same, and no two organizations' donors are the same. And then you can experiment with the style. So some people like to give really round numbers like $5,500 and $275. Others have better results by choosing funky numbers like $5.81. So just to do a little bit of experimentation and see what works with your donors. But showing these different donation amounts can have an immense impact on your overall fundraising. And that Next Chapter study found that adding the impact statement to different dollar amounts yielded 64 to 78% increase in conversion rates. So they had a huge impact because we were able to understand that donors want to know exactly what their gift can achieve. So here's kind of why we want to do this. One, and the biggest one, is it keeps your donors connected with your story throughout the donation process. So this is a form that I built myself. And in this campaign, I'm building a greenhouse for a local community garden. And here I have connected the story that I'm telling about this community greenhouse to the amounts on the page. This kind of builds on the story that you've been telling your donors throughout your campaign. So you've told them stories on social media, you've told them stories through your newsletters, you've told a story on your email appeal, and now by including these donation amounts and descriptions, we're continuing to keep them submersed in the story throughout the donation process. And then, of course, they understand their gift's impact better when they can visualize what they're going to achieve, and that often means that they'll give more. So here's where to start if you haven't done this before. So identify a reasonable range of suggested donation sizes. If you have a donor base that tends to give between the $50 to $150 donations, maybe you don't want to put a $5,500 donation on your array the way our previous example did. On the other hand, if you have a donor base that tends to give between $50 and $150, you might not want to put a $10 or $15 suggested donation amount in this array. So kind of tailor this array to your donor base and their specific giving patterns. When you build the descriptions, try to tie them into the story that you've already been telling. This example that I showed you earlier, talking about buying different greenhouse supplies, wouldn't work very well for a food bank who is trying to fill up their food pantry. We want to make sure that we're telling a consistent story so donors can stay engaged with your story throughout the entire donation process. And then focus on showing tangible impacts. Telling your donor that by giving a $500 gift, it keeps your nonprofit functioning for 4 hours is not very compelling. If you can say that a $500 gift will sponsor the gear, supplies, and trainings that your employees and volunteers will need over the course of a month, that's a little more effective because donors can actually visualize what they're going to do. After you've chosen your donation amounts and suggestions, it's time to move on to offering a recurring option, which is a really valuable but often overlooked way to raise money on a regular donation form. So you can assume when you build your donation page, it's easy for us to assume anyway, that the people who land there are going to give a one-time gift. It is a really valuable strategy to just give the option of making a recurring gift. I know I myself am a recurring donor for a number of organizations, and in none of those organizations' landing pages did I land on the page with the intention of making a one-time or a monthly gift. I did end up making a monthly gift because they included a short, clear request for recurring gifts, and it spoke to me because I'm a millennial, and we know that a large number of millennials prefer to give a monthly amount over a large gift. So I might have been intending to give an organization a $100 gift, but I opted instead to make a $20 gift over the course of a year. So I ended up giving much more money. When you are including a recurring option, think about your donor base and their giving patterns and offer a variety of billing frequencies that can accommodate those patterns. So one thing that we see a lot of at QGIF, we see a lot of organizations offering an every other week option because we know a lot of people are paid every other week. We, of course, have monthly options. We have people who include quarterly options. The biggest thing is just to give a variety of different options for billing frequency so your donor can choose the billing frequency that's best for them. And this is a really big thing. It may be tempting to default your page to making a recurring gift. Please don't do that. We might think, well, of course, we are building this page to encourage recurring gifts. People can always uncheck it. But we've noticed even people who are going to give a one-time gift and land on the page if people land on a page intending to give a recurring gift and they see that automatically checked, it can come off as feeling manipulative and they will choose not to give at all. We know that recurring donors have higher retention rates, which is why this is an important step for you to take. But we also know that recurring donors have a huge value for nonprofits. As a matter of fact, recurring donors tend to give 42% more over the lifetime of their gift than one-time donors. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a really great engagement tool, especially for younger donors. If you are talking to a millennial or Gen Z donor who maybe isn't able to give a large gift, they might not be able to give you $200 up front, but they may be able to give you $20 over 10 months. So engaging those younger donors with recurring options is really important. And here's where to start if you haven't started a recurring gift program. The first thing seems kind of silly, but enable recurring donation options on your form. Because this is such a small step, it's very easily overlooked. So just go into your donation form settings and take a peek and see how, or if people even have that option. An important thing is to build receipts and thank you letters specifically for your recurring donors. You don't necessarily want to give someone who has given loyally to you over a year or more the same receipt that they would get if they made a one-time $20 gift. The other thing is to change up those receipts and thank you letters periodically. If I am giving to you every month and I get the same form thank you every month, that can seem kind of tiresome, and it makes me feel like I'm not really being seen or recognized. And then on your form, if you are asking someone to make a recurring gift, or even if you're just giving them the option to make a recurring gift, try to communicate why they should consider making their recurring gift. You could say something like giving multiple gifts of small amounts is a great way to make a huge impact for very little money at the time. Change up your ask, but really try to focus on communicating why a donor should make a recurring gift instead of a one-time gift. Now, this is the part of the donation form that is not necessarily super fun to look at or even to talk about, but the actual fields that you include on your form can have a huge impact on whether or not a donor actually makes a gift. So here are some tips. The longer your donation form is, the less likely people are to actually give to you. So keep the required fields to an absolute minimum and remove any non-essential fields. And when I say non-essential fields, I mean almost anything that doesn't have to do with billing and payment information. You're probably going to want to remove those. Unless it is totally necessary for you to have a CAPTCHA on your page. Some people have legal requirements that necessitate CAPTCHAs. Some people have problems with card testers using their forms. But unless it's totally necessary, remove those CAPTCHAs. A donor just sees it as one more obstacle that will get between them and making a gift. If you have cleaned up all the non-essential fields on your form and are still totally desperate to get additional information about your donors, try asking them to complete a survey after making a gift if you need to get that info. One thing I wanted to point out here is that, oh no, they see, I'm learning that you guys are in presentation mode. Does that look any better? I don't know what to tell you guys. Sorry, we're working on some technical issues. I don't know what the problem is. How's that? Is that better? Okay. Thank you very much for pointing that out. GoToMeeting is always a good time. Anyway, donors are turned off by very long forms and will not complete them. So we want to have any extra fields removed, and we don't want to make them required. This is an example here of a form that has their phone number not required. You can see little asterisks by the required fields. The phone number is missing those. And a large reason for that is because we've learned that requiring a phone number to complete a donation process cuts your donations in half. So if you do not 100% for legal reasons have to have a phone number, don't make that a required field. So where do you start if you want to go through and reduce the time spent on your form? Make a test donation and just go through your form. We are all very heavily involved in fundraising, but for many of us, it's been a long time since we've actually sat down in front of our computers, gone through a donation process, and tried to understand how our donors go through the process themselves. If you get hung up on something, or if you find a form particularly troublesome, or if you get exasperated asking yourself all of these questions about, do I want to give my phone number? Do I want to opt into newsletters? Do I want to share how I learned about this organization? Your donors are also going to feel irritated. And then go and just try adding a link to a survey on your confirmation page or follow-ups. So you can see in this example, I have my thank you page. I have some great messaging, and then I have a link that asks donors to tell me more about themselves. And this is actually, well, I mean, one, it's a great way to collect information from your donors without asking them to fill out a very long form. It's also a really, really valuable donor retention strategy, and that's because of something called the Benjamin Franklin effect. The Ben Franklin effect is a psychological effect that we humans experience wherein we do a favor for someone. So we fill out a donation form for a nonprofit. And in our minds, our brains tell us, oh, wow, we must really like this organization. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done them a favor. So, asking donors to complete a short survey keeps them engaged with you longer and gives them more feelings of goodwill towards your organization and increases the likelihood that they'll engage with you and donate to you again in the future. The last tip I want to go over is similar to the other one, but it's slightly different. We want to remove any potential distractions from your donation page. So the real goal in removing distractions from our donation page is to keep donors focused on completing a gift. And we know, if any of you have children, if any of you get on social media at all, you know we have short attention spans. If we land on a donation page and there are a bunch of extra navigation items, or there's a call to action on the side to read more about an upcoming campaign, or there's a video for us to watch, we will get distracted and we won't necessarily finish the gift. So here are some tips. Remove navigation links, which sounds a little weird, but I'll show you why that works in a minute. Remove any competing calls to action, and then down by the actual button to submit their gift, reiterate the impact that they're going to make by giving that gift. So here's an example. These are two snippets of a form. You can see up here the navigation items are gone. You can always put the navigation items on the confirmation page. You can give them a way to get back to your website after they've completed the gift. But in this case, Mercy Ships has removed those navigation items because they want people to focus on making a gift without being distracted by potentially wanting to click on the About Us page or click on the news page. Down by their donation button, they have reiterated the impact that they've included. They tell the donor right underneath the give button that their gift will multiply in impact, and that reaffirms and reiterates the content that they've included up at the top of the form. We know that donations forms are appealing to people with short attention spans. We're likely to click away. It is easy for us to kind of snap out of that really beautiful, like emotional, warm, fuzzy feeling when we're distracted, and that can prevent us from making a gift. But it also helps us stay away from something called decision fatigue. If any of you are like my husband will walk into Publix, our local grocery store, and need to get a box of cereal and is totally overwhelmed by the hundreds of options he has. When we land on web pages, we can also experience decision fatigue. We might not be looking at hundreds of boxes of cereal, but we are looking at hundreds of different clickable links that will take us away from what we're doing at that moment. So remove the navigation items. You can see here the Downtown Rescue Mission has done the same thing. And then keep us connected to your story. That seems to be a recurring theme throughout this presentation, but it is for a reason. If we can focus on the story and the emotional connection you forge between your donors and the people that can help, we can encourage them to give. So where do you start? The biggest thing you can do is to put your donation form on a page that has had the additional CTAs and navigation links removed. Revamp the buttons and form language. You can see here this organization changed their submit donation or donate now button to say change a life. So that really keeps people engaged and reiterating the fact that they are making a change in someone's life when they give. And then use later communications to offer different ways to get engaged. This has some very intense and very dramatic impacts on people's overall fundraising. we can actually increase donations 195% in one of those next after experiments just by removing those external links. An important thing to remember is that the organization that improved their fundraising 195% on one of their forms removed the navigation items and additional calls to action, like I mentioned, but they also removed footer links. And this makes sense. If you think about it and you are on a donation page and you're scrolling down and you get to the end of the form and there's the donation button right there, and then in the footer, there are maybe a handful of links and encouraging donors to look elsewhere. So removing those footer links had a huge impact. And this is something that is not particularly common. We know more than half of nonprofits don't remove navigation items from their page, and about 40% of nonprofits have a conflicting call to action, whether that is click to volunteer, click over to this blog entry to read more about this campaign. And so those 40% of nonprofits are giving their donors contrasting requests. So if you fall into those nonprofits that either have navigation items on their page or have conflicting call to actions, go through and clean up your donation form. It can have a really dramatic impact on the amount of money you raise. The other thing I wanted to cover with you is something that it's easy to forget about. We want to make our donors feel safe. I don't know how many of you have had your payment information compromised in that large Target data leak that happened a while ago. That happened to me. We hear about the Experian leaks where people's personal information was getting out. We heard about the big leak that happened with Home Depot a few years ago. People are leery of any website that asks for personal information. So here are some things we can do. Use the HTTPS protocol on your donation form, and I'll go into how to do that in a minute. Try including a lock icon to the area of your donation form that includes the payment fields. In that next after study, they saw donations increase by 9.5%, which is not a huge increase, but it is significant. And then no one loves security certificates. They're not pretty, but having them down by the submission button can really make your donors feel safer submitting that information. You can see here, this is an example of some additional pieces that an organization added to their page. And you can see the bottom two images on this page are QGIV security certificates, but they chose to add not only security information, but what we call trust indicators. So they've included information about Charity Navigator, about Citygate. They've shown their accreditations, and they are kind of helpful when it comes to people who are maybe skeptical about giving an organization to a donation. This is another example of a really interesting trust indicator that one of our clients include on their page. These are designed to let donors know that the organization that is receiving their donation is actually going to use that donation to make a difference. So if you are interested in making your donors feel safer and more secure on your donation form, here are some steps you can take. Talk to your webmaster about security and about having a secure page or site. You can talk to the organization or the company that hosts your website. You may also be able to talk to the agency that you use to design the page, and really focus on getting your donation form set on a secure encrypted page. It's a minor issue, a minor task, but add a lock icon to your payment information section. That little visual indicator is so small that it can have such a dramatic impact on whether or not donors actually feel comfortable giving. And then leave your security certificates on your page. You can put them down by the submission button. You can put them on the sides of the page, wherever you decide to put them. We know they're not the prettiest things. They weren't designed with brands in mind, but they do indicate to donors that your form is safe and that you will have their information secure throughout the process. And then if you choose to, you can add trust indicators that really reiterate skeptical or cautious donors and show them that you're going to use their money wisely and invest it in the mission that inspired them to give. So let's kind of pull it all together. We know that there are three big steps we need to take to make our donors more comfortable giving to us. We want to build trust with them. We want to establish to them that you are a good organization that's doing good work and that giving to your organization will help them make a difference in others' lives. We want to reduce anxiety. We want them to know that their information is safe and that we're going to use their money well. And then we want to remove any friction that would slow them down or discourage them from making a gift. So here's a quick takeaway, quick hit organization checklist for you. Make a mobile donation form if you don't already have one. It is better for you to have this than not because traffic to your page will increase and the donations made on your page will increase. Reiterate your story on your form. Include a beautiful picture of the people that your donors are going to be helping. Add an impact statement. Show donors the impact they can make by including descriptions on your suggested donation amounts, and then reiterate the difference that they can make in people's lives by including a little impact statement down by the submission button. Add reoccurring donation options if you don't already have them. This can be something as simple as adding a checkbox that allows donors to make a gift on a recurring basis and including a one-sentence call to action asking them to make their gift on a recurring basis. Go through your donation form and remove any distracting links or calls to action that could take a donor out of the story and out of the donation process and put them on a different page. And then focus on making your donors feel safe and secure as they give you their payment and personal information. We don't want them to worry about information security when they should be worrying about how they can make a difference in people's lives by supporting your organization. If you want to learn any more about how you can build a great donation form, there are more tips over at this link. I will send a link to this page in the email that I'm going to send you containing a recording of this webinar. Unfortunately, because of technical issues, you guys will also see me being in presenter mode in that recording, but the notes are still there, the statistics are still there, and all of the information that I shared with you today will be there. Now, I wanted to see if any of you have any questions. Milena is standing by to share those questions with me. Feel free to drop those in the chat box and we can get started on answering those. Do we have questions?
First, are they going to get slides separately or is it just?
We are going to send the recording. If people are interested in getting the slides, I can also send that.
Handle a situation where money is going to something like a general or annual fund. It doesn't necessarily have a designation.
Sure. That is actually really common. And the way I would kind of approach it is focus on what your driving organizational mission is. So if you work for my fictional nonprofit organization that is a food pantry, your goal is to feed the hungry people in your area. And the way you can show donors their impact is by including pictures of families that you will impact by giving them food or helping them come up with fresh groceries. You can include maybe on your suggested donation amount how much money goes to each person. So if the average person that enters your food pantry gets $45 worth of groceries for $10, you can say a $10 gift will provide $45 worth of groceries to a local family. It is kind of tricky when you are raising money for an overall annual fund, but if you can connect the imagery on your page and the descriptions on your page to your overall mission instead of one minor campaign or one minor program, that's always an option.
Okay, awesome. Let's see here. We received a question about donations on Facebook.
Sure.
Could you go over better to promote making donations on Facebook or to promote users coming to an organization's website to make a donation?
That is a fascinating question, and I feel like I could do a whole webinar on this. So the question, if you can't hear, is would you encourage donors to make a gift on Facebook, or would you encourage them to navigate from Facebook to your donation form to make a gift? And there are two options that I have seen work well at QGIF. One is including a donation form actually on your Facebook account. The tricky thing there is that, and this is why I kind of recommend people point their donors to an online donation form. I don't know if any of you have heard all the controversy around Facebook's security methods, but people do not really trust Facebook to handle their information securely because there is a history of Facebook misusing user information in the past. And we have noticed that donors are increasingly likely to navigate over to a donation form to give instead of putting their payment information in Facebook. And a lot of that is because of the trust and security issue. People don't feel safe putting their payment information on Facebook. They feel safe putting payment information on an actual page. So the way I would suggest approaching this is when you write a Facebook post, write your story, share a call to action, and then you can use a link shortener, or you can just use your regular URL to point people to the donation page. People are more likely to give to you on your page than they are to give to you on Facebook.
Awesome. Can you talk about pros and cons of embedding a donation form on your page versus going to a separate page to donate?
So the question is, can I speak to the two options of either embedding a donation form on a page or sending donors to a special donation page that is exclusively set up for that purpose? So I tend to prefer, and many of our QGIV users tend to prefer, embedding their donation form on a page instead of building a page in the QGIV system specifically for donations. And there are a couple of reasons for this. When you build a page on your website and then drop a donation form widget on that page, anytime you make a change to the rest of your page, if you update a header, if you update your navigation, if you add a new link to the footer, that change will reflect itself on the page you've built. If you have a special page for your donation form that is not an embeddable page, those changes are not made automatically. You would have to go in and make those changes a second time on the donation form to give your users a seamless experience. So if you've updated a hero image on your main page and don't want to go into a different page and update the hero image there, I would suggest embedding your donation form in a page. Now, here's a caveat. When you drop a donation form onto a page and embed it there, the URL of that page does not necessarily update itself to reflect that the page is secure. The widget is secure, so your donors aren't going to have any problems with their information being leaked. But unless you update the URL to have that HTTPS protocol, they will not see it as being a secure page. So if you do choose to embed your donation form on an existing web page, please make sure you update that URL so the donors will actually see that visual reminder that their information is secure.
Awesome. We just got another question. How often do you recommend refreshing your fundraising page during the year-end push? So with new content or new examples of feedback.
Sure. So when you get to the year-end fundraising crush, so to speak, how often you update your fundraising page is really going to be dependent upon the campaign that you're building. So we really recommend having similar branding, similar imagery, and similar languages across all of your fundraising assets that you're using for year end. So if you're running a year end campaign that, for me, I'm running a year end campaign maybe to stock up the food bank for 2020, and I'm going to be telling the same story in my appeals, in my newsletters, in my Facebook posts, and any marketing assets I send out to my donors. And I'm going to want to have all of those elements consistent across everything, including the donation form, so donors feel like they are part of a consistent, immersive story. What I would do if I were you and I was running maybe multiple campaigns for year end is build a different fundraising page for each campaign. So if you are running a fundraising campaign for year end that focuses specifically on asking recurring donors to upgrade their gifts, and then you were running another one that was asking people to make a one-time gift, and then maybe you had another campaign that asked mid-level donors to give a much higher gift than your regular donor base would make. Instead of changing the one donation form multiple times, I would build separate donation pages so each campaign can point to a donation page that makes the most sense and tells a consistent story. When it comes to updating the different impacts, I don't feel like there is a lot of expectation for you to update your donation page very regularly during year end. And that's because there is such an intense amount of fundraising that takes place in such a short period of time. We know that something like 30% of all donations made over the year are made in December, and 10% of all donations made during the year happen the last 3 days. That's a very short period of time, and I don't feel like there is really a need to worry about regularly updating that content. You have so many more other things to think about that updating your donation form multiple times in a short time period, that shouldn't be at the top of your list.
Next question, which I personally love. We are using PayPal donation button currently. Is there any evidence that a dedicated donation processor will increase donation conversions and amounts?
So the interesting thing about PayPal isn't necessarily the type of processing that you do. Where some nonprofits struggle with PayPal is they don't give you as many options for customizing your donation page as some of the platforms that are dedicated exclusively to nonprofit fundraising. So when I'll use my own personal shopping example. I went on Etsy recently and made a purchase, and when I clicked on the Etsy, pay now button, and my browser picked me up off of Etsy, dropped me on another window that was PayPal branding, had me complete my transaction there, and then dropped me back on the Etsy page. Where that becomes problematic is when a donor feels that their immersion in the story that you've been telling, hopefully throughout all of your marketing appeals, all of your marketing assets, then your donation form, the descriptive amounts, and then they're taken out of that story, dropped on a different page and asked to complete their process, and then are put back into the story. That can be distracting. And a long time ago at QGIVE, we did a short study, and we saw that moving away from that kind of disruptive payment process helped other nonprofits raise, I think, 40% more just in terms of the conversion rate. So their conversion rates increased about 40%. And then the size of the gift increased rapidly. So we know that, nonprofits often start out using PayPal, and it's great for very transactional purchases, that when you're trying to build a relationship with a donor by telling them a beautiful story and walking them through that story, it can be distracting. It also kind of messes with our trust indicators. It doesn't necessarily feel safe to be picked up off of one page, dropped onto another, and then taken back to the other page. It can just be kind of disruptive.
Well, it looks like that is all of the questions we received.
Perfect.
Someone just wanted you to go back one slide to the checklist.
Oh, here's your checklist. And thank you guys so much for sending in all of these questions. You are going to get some additional resources after we get off this call. I will send you, of course, the recording of the presentation that we did today, but I'll also send you a couple of other things. I'll send you a link to the article on donation pages. I'll send you a quick checklist you can run through to make sure your donation form is ready to go for year end. And then I'll send you some other blog articles and resources that will help you build an absolutely fantastic webinar donation page after this webinar. I really wanted to thank you guys for tuning in today. If you are interested in kind of building up your year-end fundraising strategy, I will also send you an invitation to an upcoming webinar about how to use mobile fundraising for year-end and Giving Tuesday campaigns. So keep an eye out for that follow-up email. It's going to have a lot of great resources for you in it. And until then, now you've got an actionable checklist that you can go and run through on your page right now and hopefully come up with some ideas for how to make it even better. Thank you guys for tuning in. You're fantastic. I hope you have a great Thursday. Keep an eye out for future emails from us and have a good day. Happy fundraising, everyone.